Good night. It's Tuesday night, 7 o'clock at night, here on Channel 95. It's one more show of the neighborhood news. And if you're watching this show and it's not a Tuesday night, it's because you're watching a repeat show. So please come back next Tuesday and we will have a brand new show for you. For our Portuguese community, sejam bem-vindos para mais programa das suas notícias da sua vizinhança. Hoje nós estamos de volta, é terça-feira, canal 95, aqui às 7 da noite. Nós transmitimos para vós mais programa de notícias da sua vizinhança. Se está a escutar este programa e não é terça-feira, é porque está a escutar programa repetido. Portanto, volte na próxima terça-feira que nós temos mais novo programa para si. Fique conosco, nós temos hoje aqui convidado conosco. And now that we reach out to our Portuguese listeners, because we do have a Portuguese show, which comes tomorrow, Wednesday at 6:30. You can watch here on Channel 95 the show Amigos, which is for the Portuguese community, Portuguese speaker community. Tomorrow at right after, I believe at 7 o'clock, you can watch a show that I helped to produce, and that's a Brazilian show. Our friends Sony Fernandes in Mata, they both do Portuguese news, revisão de notícias semanal. That show, you can watch it here tomorrow, Wednesday, right after the Amigos show. And let's bring it back to today and today's show. My guest, it's not a strange face in the city. He belongs to different boards and he shares some boards too, and he belongs to our sister neighborhoods, North Ends, which is I always have a hard time to get other neighborhoods to get involved and to come to our show. So welcome, Tony, and why don't you, instead of me trying to identify which boards that you belong, why don't you introduce yourself and within the board?
Okay, my name is Antone Dias. I am the treasurer of the North End Neighborhood Association. I'm also a member of the Community Preservation Committee, and finally I am the chair of the Fall River Historical Commission. Very good.
And you belong to the North End Neighborhood Association?
Yep, I'm the treasurer of the North End Neighborhood Association. Yep.
Very good. So you and everybody pretty much identify you already with the CPA and the historical. What connects the two? Because you are in both.
And how I'm in both?
Exactly. So what's the connection?
So first I was in the neighborhood by itself, but I was requested by a city councilor to see if I would submit my resume to be on the Community Preservation Committee. The city council gets to choose 2 people on that committee. It was myself and Ken Pacheco that got voted in by the city council. I believe 6 months after that, I was asked if I wanted to be part of the Fall River Historical Commission, and I said, sure, I'll be on it. So I believe that was dormant for maybe 6 to 8 months. We had our first meeting. I ended up being chosen as a chair and realized that we had to start from scratch. We didn't have anything available to us. There was no meeting minutes, no nothing. We, on that first day, started from scratch. Started with looking at the city's ordinance and saying, here's the guidelines of what we need to do, and that's what we've been working on right up till today.
And on the process, you've been pretty much teaching us a lot how the stuff it's done and how can be done, and getting a lot of people informed and talking on the historical side. Just because they purchase a historic building, that that they still can do constructions, and they still can do some stuff that they can do. So, and that's something that us community has been learning through the meetings.
Right, so there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people believe that there's a lot of red tape associated with owning a property on the National Register. That's not true, at least not in Fall River. In Fall River, we have 5 historical districts. All of the buildings within those historical districts are on the National Register of Historical Places. In addition to those 5 historical districts, we have a brand new local historical district. That is completely different than the other 5. That one local historical district has 47 houses, which they've chosen that if they're planning to do any exterior work on their property, they need to come before a special local historical committee to show them what they're planning to do. Just those 47 houses. All of these other houses on the National Register or not, property owners really can do anything that they want. In either of the 2 districts, the Historical Commission, the one thing that we don't do is we don't recommend colors or pick colors. I would like to recommend some colors, but we basically said that's off the table. But with properties that are on the National Register, we do recommend that you talk to someone from the Historical Commission, because if you're going to put an addition on it, you're going to do a renovation, you know, we're architects, we're contractors, we know building codes, we can help you with that. I do get a lot of calls from folks who have been given information from contractors that they want to do this or they want to do that. And having the opportunity to speak with people and to have them go through the process of understanding what it is that they're looking to do and what the different results could be, it ends up being very helpful for them. The advantages to owning a property that's on the National Register is if it's a house or a property that provides you income, not your sole residence, but if you, let's say, own a triple decker and you rent it out, if you do exterior renovations on that property, you can qualify for tax credits. So what that is anything that you do to the outside, you would qualify for 20% Massachusetts tax credits and 10% federal tax credits. So basically 1/3 of your construction costs you get in the form of a tax break, or it's a check. And they basically give you a 10-year period of how you want to use that. Some people choose that they want to sell it to a bank, and the bank would basically buy it from them at 95, 97 cents a dollar. So that's one thing that they can do. Other folks, at least for those who are seniors and they live in their homes and they're looking to save some money, they have an option of putting a facade preservation restriction on their property. And what that is we basically hire an estimator to come in and figure out how much the value of the front of their property is worth. And what we do is we get that information and we document it with the Fall River Registry of Deeds. So for example, if you own a property that's worth $300,000 and the estimate came back that the front of your building would be worth in value of $100,000, what we do after we register is before January 1st, we would go to the city assessor and basically show him the paperwork and say, hey, City of Fall River, while you've been assessing my property and taxing me at the $300,000 rate, because I put a facade preservation restriction on it, we're subtracting $100,000 from that. So now that property is being taxed on the $200,000 rate. Because you put a preservation restriction on it, one of the requirements is we ask that you keep the property up, cut the grass, and there's a 30-year restriction on the demolition of the property.
So you pretty much, for people that are listening to us that are thinking about buying property, you pretty much recommend people to buy these properties. And we have a lot of properties that can fit those criteria.
I absolutely recommend it. I think it's one of the greatest.
So it's an
properties.
investment. It's a good investment.
That and even a better investment is a vacant property. Because right now in the city, everyone hears, it's a vacant, let's knock it down, it's dangerous and stuff, and you hear a lot of information, but at the end of the day, when you look at these properties, they were built in early 1900s. They are substantially way better built today than anything that we can build. An example is I've done a high-rise in Providence. That building's only 50 years lifespan on it. All of the new schools that we've done in Fall River only has a 50-year lifespan. But all of the houses that were built in the early 1900s or even before, these are houses that have been built for 100, 200 years. So a small investment into a vacant property that you can get it on relatively cheap is an unbelievable investment.
What age of a house that you think that will be the person could put and register? What age?
So to put on the Fall River Register,
yes,
it needs to be at least 50 years old.
Okay. So if I buy a 3-decker and I look at the construction dates, and the house was constructed 60 years ago.
Yes.
So I can follow and I can put a process to put that house?
Correct. So there's 3 ways on how you can get your property listed on the Fall River Register of Historical Places. The first way is the Historical Commission members themselves can make a recommendation to nominate a property. The second is the homeowner themselves would fill out an application that we have and submit it to us. And third is a petition of 25 city residents. So what we do is we look at the application. We have a number of different scenarios how the house could qualify. For example, let's say that it's a gas station. We might say it's just a gas station, but maybe it has a particular Art Deco style to it. So we would qualify it as architecturally significant in that way versus maybe a place that Lizzie Borden had gone and slept there or something like that. So there's about different ways that your property can get designated on it.
I will say probably 60% of our 3-deckers, 4-deckers are over 50 years old.
I think more. I think all of them, because if you think about it, new construction after the 70s, they're not building 3-story residential apartments with 2x6s. The construction of the triple-deckers that we have today are true 2-inch by 6-inch or 2-inch by 4-inch.
And you think the city would benefit if we go ahead and we put every house that was that old and register all those houses? Do you think the city will benefit in some way?
So let's say that you were to register all these triple-deckers. Now we're talking about creating historical districts. Now when you have historical districts, you have grants available for streetscapes and other things that you want to do. Besides having those properties, having a third of your construction cost available to you. I mean, if you renovate your property, now your neighbor is potentially going to renovate their property, and it just snowballs from there. And I believe it's a good thing. And
the only way that we can lose a house like that is if it's condemned by fire. It's no way that nobody can redo it, right?
Well,
Because we see a lot of houses that are old houses that they've been demolished because,
Right.
you know, the second floor got fire.
Right.
And so they have to demolish the house, but never goes back another
Right.
three-decker on that place,
Right.
goes a single home.
right. So I don't like that. I don't agree with that. If you have a house fire and the second floor burns, you could easily build it back. So what's happening is people are demolishing their properties, demolishing their foundations. And if you think about it in the way of dollars and cents, and that's how the Historical Commission looks at it, the way we look at it is how much does it cost and does it make sense to restore or to replace? If the value isn't even close, we're of the opinion, okay, demolish it, unless the homeowner really wants to restore it. But a foundation by itself is 25% of the cost of the construction. So if you're demolishing your property, you're demolishing your foundation, you're throwing money out the window. At least that's my opinion. A lot of the damage in a house fire is the water damage. So I would recommend replacing the plaster or drywall, whatever it is, dry out the house. There's companies like Surf Pro. Their job is to come in and basically remove all of the moisture from the buildings. If the second floor, the third floor is so damaged, you just take that floor out and you build that floor back in. So when you're having these conversations with an insurance company and they're saying it's a total loss and you're insured for a $300,000, $400,000, why would you demolish a triple decker and then build something for $200,000 where potentially you can take that full amount and just build a floor and then renovate the inside?
Which we have a couple examples. We have one perfect example right on Columbus Street that was a fire, and so now it's no longer a three-decker there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that if it catches on fire, even down to the ground, you can rebuild it. So if you think about World War II, how Berlin, Poland were just destroyed. All of those facades are back. They've all been rebuilt, and you can. It's just, do you want to rebuild? So what we have here in the city of Fall River is, the building department basically says, the house is dangerous. We want to knock it down. So the reality of it, it's the homeowner's decision if they want to demolish the property. So once a building department tells you that your house is dangerous, you can't be in there, you need to do something about it, you really have three choices. You can choose to demolish the property. You can choose to fence it off and prevent anyone from going on your property and injuring themselves, or you can renovate it. But at the end of the day, it's your choice.
And now we get into an even more confused parts when we get into this abandoned old properties that even worse is owned by the city. Because if it was private owned, probably, either way, they will be resolved. Now it's owned by the city, puts a lot of red tape on it. And we don't have too much time, but I just want to hear your opinion about two particular buildings. The old police station and the mill on the south end. Yes. What is your opinion that we can do with those buildings?
So let's talk about the old police station first. I've taken a tour of the building. The building is a fallout shelter, so it's basically designed to take a nuclear blast. I think when people take a look at photographs and they see plaster and paint peeling, they all of a sudden assume that it's a very bad building. Structurally, it's sound. With any renovation, even if it was a 20-year-old building, whoever is going to own that property, they're going to take out all the plaster, take down all the studs because they want to put in new electrical, new plumbing, new stuff.
That building goes to the bone.
But the problem that we have, I think, with the old police station is parking. It's the building itself is the lot. You know, I think, you know, the potential correct owner of that property should be CD Rec because they're already right there. They could easily use the upper floor for basketball and hockey, and I think they could create some parking on their existing addition if they were to demolish that. So that's
so at the end of the day, you think that that you could save that building?
It's absolutely structurally sound. The brickwork needs to be repointed. That's no problem.
Very good.
With the King Philip Mill.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother story. So the entire building is on the National Register of Historical Places. And the one thing that I've been disappointed in myself is the process. So there's been a lot of what I think a lot of misinformation, a lot of talk of a dangerous building or unsafe building. At the end of the day, we're talking a people issue. The fear of someone making the building, catching it on fire and stuff. But if you look at a process, you're supposed to try to understand what the problem is. And I've heard multiple things. I've heard it's unsafe because people can break in, or a sprinkler system doesn't work. It's still not clear. We've asked for reports from the building department, fire department. We have not gotten any reports, so we don't know if we could make that building safe for a few $100,000 versus spending up to $6 to $10 million to demolish it. So that's the first piece. The second piece is we have a feasibility study that gave us 7 different options on how to use the property. It looks like the administration has chosen to go with the worst of the 7 options. That property could get up to $30 million of tax credits available to it if it was to fully develop it. So the Historical Commission does agree and believe that we should demolish some pieces of it, but not to the extent that we're talking about it today.
Okay, so 80%, you say, of the building can be saved?
I think all of the major structures.
Okay.
The connector pieces, the smaller building pieces, those could be knocked down, but
because those small pieces was they were added into the property probably.
No, they're original. Like for example, one of them is the electrical building or the boiler room building.
Oh, okay.
So if you were to take one of those main buildings and let's say make it into a hotel, that back building could be a great place for a swimming pool for exercise. The other large building could be mixed use, retail, offices. The 2-story, long building by Cook Pond, you could have restaurants in there. You know, I understand that people want a park, but I see a park not being a big open green flat place. It could be various things. It could be included in the, call it the waterfront there. So there's so many things that can be done, but we're just not discussing it because we're focused on demolishing the King Philip Mill.
And you believe that that the city is going to succeed with the project the way they are projecting? Well,
so right now they have a demolition RFP, which I'm very concerned about the contamination that's involved. I don't think that's been looked at enough. We have an engineer's report that is indicating that it needs to be cleaned up before it's being demolished, but that's not clear in the current demolition RFP. So I'm very concerned about that. I have sent an email to the city administrator with my concerns. So we'll wait and see if they want to meet.
So at this point, you still don't have...
So what we do know in that...
You didn't have a chance yet to address the administration, your concerns, and what do you think that the...
I did speak with the city administrator before the RFP. I did indicate that I had read that engineering report and my concerns in it, and I was assured that I would have the opportunity to look at the RFP and make comments on it. Well, so that never happened. So being an architect, I know how to write RFPs, and unfortunately, this RFP that we have is a rehash version of an RFP that the City of Attleboro used, and it still references inspections by City of Attleboro inspectors in there. So
Oh, okay, I see. So they use the same document, but
they use the same document. And you know, typically, if I'm going to demolish a property that's contaminated, I'm going to cap it, which is I'm going to put a membrane over it. And there's going to be some test wells and a drainage. None of that is included in this RFP. And I'm especially concerned that there's a difference in the bidders of $1 million to $6 million. That's unheard of. And to give you a good example, let's say that when these new middle schools are built, $70 million schools, if you have 4 or 5 different contractors, they're not going to be off more than $300,000. So the fact that we have a simple demolition project that varies in price from $1 million to $6 million, it's telling you that they are all understanding that RFP completely different, and we're not talking apples to apples. So it's very important to go down to that low bidder and basically ask questions and find out if he's carrying the same thing that the guy who bid $6 million on it. And I can tell you right now that he's probably going to say, no, that's not included on it. So the answer would be, well, that's what you bid on it, that's what you're going to be required to do, and what'll end up happening is that bidder will say, well, we withdraw our bid.
So, and then we're really going to end up being stuck again with that project because, you know, at that point somebody can stop the process, right?
Well,
if something's wrong with it.
So the Historical Commission is saying that, you know, there are things wrong with it. We're supposed to notify Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. I can absolutely assure you that once demolition starts, we're going to be contacting them to make sure a lot of things are done correctly, especially with Cook Pond being right there.
Exactly.
An addendum was put out that basically told the contractors that they did not have to abate all of the lead paint. So what's going to happen is in the demolition, when they're knocking the building down and the lead paint is flying right into Cook Pond, we're going to be contaminating Cook Pond.
Wow. Tony, it's too bad we don't have more time because I was one more building that I want to talk to you about, and it's the old Silver School.
We can always come back.
Please, let's set up a date to bring you back again because we still have a lot to talk about, especially on this mill renovation or demolition, whatever they want to do with it. So it's all for tonight. Thank you, Tony, again, and nice to see you, and thank you. Have a good night.